Welcome to the deep dive. We're taking a deep dive into cybersecurity today. You sent a ton of articles and research, so I can tell you're ready to learn more.
Yeah, definitely.
By the end, you'll understand the basics and have some practical tips for staying safe online. It can feel overwhelming, right?
It really can. The threats are always changing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's break it down first. What exactly is cybercrime?
Basically, it's any illegal activity that uses computers or the internet.
Okay, so traditional crime, but in the digital world.
Exactly. Instead of robbing a house, someone hacks your computer. Instead of stealing your wallet, they steal your identity.
So the crimes are the same, just with new tools.
Yeah.
Which makes you think, how much of our lives are online now? Is that why there's so much more cybercrime?
Yeah, it's definitely a huge factor. The more we use the internet for banking, shopping, communicating, everything, the more opportunities criminals have.
That makes sense. It's like a bigger target, right? A bigger attack surface.
That's a great way to put it. And on top of that, technology itself is always evolving.
Right. So it's not just that we're more online,
Hmm.
but the ways to commit these crimes are changing too.
Exactly. It's a double-edged sword. Technology gives us amazing things, but it also gives criminals new tools. Think about cryptocurrency, for example.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
How does that play into things?
It offers a lot of anonymity. It's hard to trace transactions, which unfortunately makes it attractive for illegal activities.
So it's this combination of more of our lives being online, A&D, new tech, creating new opportunities for criminals. Kind of feels like the Wild West out there.
Yeah, I like that analogy. And just like in the Wild West, you got to be prepared to protect yourself.
Exactly. So let's talk about protection. What can we actually do to stay safe? Strong passwords, obviously. But is that enough these days?
Strong passwords are a good start, but not enough on their own. We need to talk about two-factor authentication. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, but I'm not sure I totally get it.
It's like an extra layer of security. Think of it like a deadbolt on your front door. Even if someone gets your password, they can't get in without that second factor, which is usually a code sent to your phone.
So something, your password, Andy D, something you have your phone.
Yep.
That makes sense. What about those software updates that are always popping up? Are those important for security?
They're absolutely crucial. Updates often include patches for vulnerabilities that have been found, like patching holes in your digital defenses.
Makes sense. So many parallels to the physical world. Okay, so strong passwords, two-factor, and keeping software updated. Anything else?
One of the biggest things is being skeptical and using common sense.
Okay.
If something seems too good to be true online, it probably is. Be wary of suspicious emails, links, attachments.day, especially if you weren't expecting them.
Right, don't click without thinking.
Exactly. Always verify the sender before clicking or giving out personal information.
Good advice. It's easy to click without thinking. Okay, so we've covered some basic tips. But before we move on, I want to clarify. What are the different types of threats out there? You mentioned malware before. Is that like a catch-all term?
You got malware is a broad term for all sorts of digital nasties designed to harm your devices or steal your information. There are viruses, worms, trojans, ransomware, spyware, and more.
Wow, a whole zoo of digital threats.
It can feel that way. But don't worry, we'll break down the most common ones so you know what to look out for.
Okay, let's get into it.
Uh,
Let's unpack those digital threats. Starting with phishing. What is it and how does it work?
Think of it like online trickery attackers want you to give them sensitive information, like your passwords or credit card numbers.
Okay, so they're trying to trick us.
Exactly. They send emails or texts disguised to look like they're from someone you trust, like your bank or a store you shop at.
So they're playing on our trust, hoping we'll click without thinking.
Right. They often create a sense of urgency, like your account's been compromised or limited time offer, click now. And those links might lead to fake websites designed to steal your info. It can be very convincing.
Yikes. So how do we avoid falling for it?
Be vigilant and pay close attention to the details. Always check the sender's email address carefully. Hover over links before clicking. Make sure they go where they're supposed to. And if anything feels off, even a little bit, contact the sender directly through a trusted method, like the number on your credit card.
Good point. It's better to be safe than sorry.
Okay, what about ransomware? That one sounds especially scary.
Ransomware is like digital kidnapping. It encrypts your files, locking you out, and then the attackers demand a ransom to unlock them, usually in cryptocurrency.
So they're holding your data hostage. How do people even get infected with that?
Phishing emails are a common way. You might open an attachment that infects your computer or click a link that downloads it without you knowing.
So those suspicious emails and links are dangerous for both phishing and ransomware. Exactly. It's all about minimizing your risk. Now, another type of malware to watch out for is spyware.
Spyware, like something out of a spy movie.
Right. It secretly monitors what you do online, stealing sensitive info, passwords, credit card numbers, that sort of thing.
Wow. And is it hard to detect?
It can be tricky because it runs in the background, but a good antivirus can help, and being careful about the websites you visit and software you download.
So like a digital bodyguard.
Oh,
Okay, it seems like we can do a lot to protect ourselves, but what about the bigger picture? Who's fighting against cybercrime globally?
there are a lot of dedicated people and organizations working hard to combat it. Law enforcement agencies worldwide collaborate to track down criminals. Security researchers analyze threats and develop countermeasures.
Sounds like a constant game of cat and mouse.
It definitely is. The threats are always evolving, and the good guys are always working to stay ahead. But cybersecurity isn't just their responsibility.
What do you mean?
I mean, everyone who uses the internet needs to be aware of the risks and take steps to protect themselves. It's a shared responsibility.
So we can't just rely on others. We need to be proactive ourselves.
Exactly. We all need to work together and support each other to create a safer online environment.
You're right. We've talked about the basics of cybercrime, threats like phishing and ransomware, even spyware. But we haven't mentioned small businesses much. I imagine they're especially vulnerable, right?
You're spot on. They often don't have the resources or expertise for the same level of security as big companies, and yet they're increasingly targeted.
So what can small businesses do to protect themselves? We've touched on general tips, but anything specific?
Creating a culture of security within the organization is crucial. Make cybersecurity a top priority and integrate it into everything you do.
Okay, but how do you actually do that?
It starts with education. Make sure all employees understand the importance of cybersecurity and how even small actions can have big consequences.
Makes sense. So everyone needs to be on board.
Right. Provide regular training on cybersecurity best practices like recognizing phishing emails and creating strong passwords, and make sure everyone knows how to report suspicious activity.
So everyone's part of the solution, not a potential weak link. What about things like firewalls and antivirus software? Essential for small businesses too.
Absolutely. A firewall acts as a barrier between your network and the outside world, blocking unauthorized access. And antivirus helps detect and remove malware that might try to sneak in.
Seems like a lot to handle. Anything else they should consider?
Don't forget about data backups. Regularly back up all your important data to a secure location. That way, even if you get hit with ransomware or lose data, you can recover it without paying a ransom.
Ah, like an insurance policy for your business. So to sum up, small businesses need to prioritize cybersecurity, educate employees, implement firewalls and antivirus, and back up their data. Anything else before we wrap things up? Wow, we've covered so much in this deep dive on cybersecurity.
No.
From the basics of cybercrime to specific threats, even what small businesses need to know. It's been a lot.
It has, but that's cybersecurity for you. It's always changing, and there's a lot to it.
Exactly. So before we wrap up, let's go over the key takeaways. What are the most important things you want our listener to remember?
I think the most important thing is that cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility. We can't just rely on experts or tech to keep us safe. We all have a role to play in protecting ourselves and our data online.
I totally agree. It's about taking those steps, even small ones, to minimize our risks.
Another key point is that knowledge is power. The more you understand the threats and how to protect yourself, the better off you'll be.
Right. It's not about being scared. It's about knowing what's out there and what to do.
And lastly, I want to emphasize that even small actions can make a big difference. Strong passwords, two-factor authentication, being careful about emails, those things really add up.
Like building a strong immune system for your digital life.
Exactly. Good digital habits are key.
So to recap, be proactive, stay informed, and don't underestimate those simple security measures.
Perfect. And remember, if you ever feel lost or unsure, there are resources out there. Don't be afraid to ask for help from experts or trusted sources.
Absolutely. There's no shame in asking for help, especially when it comes to something as important as this.
Couldn't agree more.
Well, I think that wraps up our cybersecurity deep dive. We've learned a lot, and I hope our listener feels more confident about staying safe online.
It's been great diving deep with you.
And to our listener, thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Stay curious, stay vigilant, and we'll see you next time.